The hell's that supposed to mean?
First impressions mean everything. If you're on a first date and things feel off, you're not gonna want to go back for round 2. And the same applies with game consoles. Consoles really need to hook you after you purchase them, because the company wants your money, and they can't get it if you decide that your Wii U is shitty and return it. That hook generally is the games or the gimmick, but another important factor is the menu. The operating system of the console needs to be intuitive, user-friendly, and cool enough to not only represent the console, but to keep the user with them. And because this is a three-way balancing act, are you surprised that some companies f*** it up? So today, we're discussing and dissecting the startup screens and operating systems of various game consoles throughout video game history. In the beginning, there was nothing. Literally. Game consoles back in the day didn't really have a user-controlled OS. Hell, even computers barely had an OS. It was basically a damn text terminal. These early consoles, the Atari 2600, the Intellivision, the NES, all of them were cartridge-based consoles, meaning that the game data on the cartridge was the first thing you saw. No fancy graphics, unless the developers gave you some. Think of Super Mario Bros. The game just starts up to the title screen. There were consoles that had startup screens, but they didn't do much, so for this video, we're just gonna start with the PlayStation. After Nintendo and Sony had a little scrimmage in the early 90s, Sony decided to spit in the face of Nintendo and create their own console, and it had a startup screen. Triangles coming together to create the Sony Computer Entertainment logo, and then going to the PlayStation logo, all with chimes and other futuristic sounds. Keep in mind, this was 1994, and CD gaming at this point was in its infancy. Sony was flexing with what they could do with CDs. Sure, the SNES could do audio samples, but could it do this? I mean, maybe, but for the sake of this argument, I'm gonna say no. And fun fact about this startup, the second half with the PlayStation logo is actually stored on the disc, not on the console. That's why when you don't put a disc in, or if the disc doesn't work, it doesn't show that part of the startup, unless there's an error and you get a Fearful Harmony. Watch my video on game console errors. Speaking of not putting a disc in, what happens if you don't? Well, you get into the menu system of the PS1. Now, it's fairly primitive, but it works. Also, looks cool, so that makes up for it. The things you can do on it is edit stuff on your memory cards and play CDs. Yep, that's it. I gotta give credit where credit is due, though. PlayStations have always allowed for things like music and video playing with ease, and I love them for it. If I wasn't a Nintendo freak, I'd absolutely be a PlayStation guy. Sadly, the menu is very janky in my opinion, and it's just such a limited set of options. I mean, it was 1994, there wasn't much to do, but still. Also, it's just silence in the menus. I mean, come on, video game console menu design 101. I mean, they were one of the first, but I don't care. I'm judgy. But the PlayStation was a success, so Sony made another. It was alright too. This time, they stepped shit up real good. The startup is of a blue-black void, with towers representing your save data on memory cards. The sounds in the background sound atmospheric, and then the screen whooshes in to give you the PlayStation 2 logo with a... It's just so... Maybe that's the nostalgia talking, but the PS2 startup is just so cool. And yet again, no disc? No problem, as it leads you to a menu. It's here where you can set system settings and look at your memory card data. And each button press makes more great atmospheric sounds. It's just so perfect. In the ring of lights in the middle, it's like the Tetris effect before Tetris effect. Now, do I have gripes with this menu? Yeah, in my opinion, if you like something and you can't criticize it, do you really like it? I mean, look at We Deleted You. It's mid at best, and yet here I am trying to push it into every video I make. Speaking of... Anyways, the PS2. What the hell is the system options doing? I was like 3 when I got my PS2. I had no clue what any of this meant. I thought these were static strings. It made no sense to me. I mean, sure, it was kind of a thing meant for the grown-ups to do, but still. But it's perfect in my eyes. And how do you improve upon perfection? That's right, you don't. The PS3 was the first in what I'm gonna call the modern consoles, and it came with a time-appropriate menu screen. First up, I'll say I really like the startup sounds of both the old and new firmwares. The strings, the synths, it's very nice. And I like the wave in the background too. It's very calming, and very 2006 in my opinion. But then we get to the menu. What the hell is happening here? So instead of having side menus, they put everything into its own little category right on the main screen. I mean, sure, that makes sense, everything's there, but it just gets more confusing the deeper down you go. I mean, the settings section has a bunch of different settings in it already, but then if you go into one of those sub-settings, you get more stuff. Sub-settings. Speaking of, there's like a gajillion system settings. Like, what? And the menu has the same issue of the PS1. It's quiet as hell. It also looks kinda dull after a while. Sure, there are themes and colors, but by default, it's quiet and dark. And people were defending this console with their lives. Why? The menu just has a bunch of crap in it. It feels like a lot could be trimmed away and it would be easier to manage. So there's nowhere to go but up, right? Yeah, actually. The PS4 starts bland with the PlayStation logo, but that's just to tell you that the console is working. Or something. Then it pulls a Nintendo and tells us to read the safety information. We'll get to that in due time. And then we get a nice guitar and a demand to press a button. Getting into the menu itself, they improved quite a bit. It's no longer quiet and dull anymore, so that's a plus. They also have moved all the boring stuff to the top, meaning that all the important stuff, games, are front and center, waiting for you. Of course, the 80 million different settings are there, but they're hidden behind the settings button itself, which is a nice touch, I guess. And yeah, this is an entirely cromulent menu. It works, it isn't boring, and it even has an actual Tetris Effect theme, so it's pretty good on that front alone. But what about the next console? Well, it doesn't matter because you'll never get one. Okay, fine, I'll look at it. The startup is very similar to the PS4s, with a black and white logo, Nintendo Fever, and a jingle. This time it's very short, but the main focus, I think, is on the background particles flying about. It looks very nice and shows off the power that the PS5 has. Not that you'll ever be able to experience that. If you thought they modernized the PS4's menu, they f***ing made the PS5 more modern. Every app has its own little unique section at the bottom, and in that section it can be things like news or advertisements. Yeah, you can get f***ing adverts in the menu. I mean, it's related to the game and it's the game developers giving it to you, but I still don't give a shit when new Fortnite skin is out, I just want to be miserable. But one thing I really like is how every app gives a unique background. That's just so nice. All the boring junk is even more simplified now, with there being 5 whole options at the top now, and only 2 of them are customization or settings related. There's also a dedicated media section letting you have easy access to every single streaming service. Because every cable company needs to make their own streaming service. That makes sense. But what about the sounds? I love it. Again, very atmospheric and ambient. I could literally fall asleep with the menu music. That is until I get a random ass invite or something. I don't know, I don't have a PlayStation 5. Did it look like I have that money? So that was just the PlayStation. But what if we went over to the other side? You know, I'm writing this script in Microsoft Word on Microsoft Windows, so I don't know if I'm gonna be hunted down by Microsoft employees if I talk bad on the Xbox. Oh well, if I die, make sure my death gets popular on true crime podcasts. The original Xbox was going up against the PS2, and Microsoft basically said, yeah, you may have those towers in that void, but we have nuclear slime. Do you think that tilted the sales in their favor? Well, there's always next time. This menu feels like it's trying too hard. Like, looking at the PS2's menu, it's just words with some fancy graphics in the background. The Xbox's is so f***ing convoluted. Everything feels like it takes ages. Like, I just want to go to my system settings, and I've had to wait for so long for the first f***ing menu to go through. Sure, it's unique and kinda cutesy that it looks like that, but this just ain't it for a console menu. I mean, there's background ambience here, and it plays with the whole laboratory vibe of the Xbox menu, but it doesn't get me in the mood to play Xbox. It's just something to listen to, I guess. Oh, and all the sounds when pressing buttons are going between the menus are very mechanical, just to add more onto the vibe. Also, Sam, the software automatic mouse from the old 8-bit computers, for some reason, I mean, it's cool, but also, what? The Xbox could play audio CDs, so ha, take that, Sony. Oh, fuck, I got DVDs now? Of course, there's settings and stuff, and something interesting I think is apparent there is parental controls. This allows for parents to restrict games and movies with certain ratings. So if you don't want your kids to play anything but early childhood games, then you can do that. So, what about the 360? Well, throughout the 360's life, there were 4 distinct menus that were made. Blades, New Xbox Experience, Kinect, and Metro. each with their own positives and negatives. And to save time, let's condense my opinions. The Blade's dashboard is very unique and pretty. It gives off the 2006 vibes of the Xbox 360. Despite this, it is, paradoxically, not really unique in these sub-menus. I get they were trying to push live profiles or whatever, but I'm getting flashbacks from the PS3 and I have no idea where to go. New Xbox experience is an in-between state between old-school skeuomorphism and modern minimalism, and is very 2008 Microsoft. It reminds me of Windows Media Player of the time. Also, a little bit of iPods of the time with the wheel of albums you would scroll through. Just this time it's box arts. Anyways, it still suffers from the just shove a bunch of shit into sub-categories curse, and it isn't all too memorable. The Kinect dashboard leans further into modern flat minimalism, with just a tiny hint of skeuomorphism hidden in there. Otherwise, it's a flattened NXE menu with nice animations. Not really that memorable. And then Metro, which is very Windows 8/Zune inspired. Basically, fully flat with heavy social, TV, movies, music sections. To me, this is the most memorable. Maybe because it was the menu that I saw when I went to family and friends' houses, but still. Oh, and ads. Lots of ads. Yuck. Oh, and the startups. The first one, for the first two dashboards, is very reminiscent of the early 360 days, although it feels off. The second is very iconic. Again, maybe that's nostalgia kicking in, but it just gives off the aura of the Xbox 360. The sound still feels off though. So, was the Xbox One any better? Again, there are multiple dashboards, so let's truncate this down. The first menu, which I'm going to call the Windows 8 Metro Start Screen dashboard, looks pretty much like that. The Windows 8 Start menu or Windows Phone OS. Anyways, as Microsoft was doing early on with the Xbox One, ads were everywhere, and there was a focus on media content that the user didn't care about. The menu itself is fine, but there's just a strong focus on what I'm going to call junk, as many other Xbox users would probably also say. Then the new Xbox One Experience dashboard. I was joking when I made a long-ass name for the last dashboard, but Microsoft actually did that. Big-ass game screen right at the front with adverts on the side and your stuff way below. Because that makes sense. Although you can go from the top to bottom with the triggers, but nah. And finally, fluent design. Instead of Windows 8, it now looks like Windows 10. It feels a bit confusing, but it's not too bad. It's still manageable. But there's some mixer junk in there, so I'll have to dock points for that. Overall, a nice menu. It shows that Microsoft was improving. And the startup screen, which I quite like. The sound is iconic, it's not too overcomplicated, and it just overall feels nice. It really defines Xbox. I like it. Then we get to the other console you'll never get, the Xbox Series X. Why the fuck did they name it like that? So far, only one real dashboard, so we're not gonna give it a name. It's just there. The console itself looks very clean and Metro, as to be expected with Microsoft, but it isn't that bad really. The most recent apps are at the top, the most recent being the biggest. Then you have your standard advertisements underneath. They kept the pins feature, which is nice, but I feel the most recently played section works out the need for it. But I digress. Maybe there's some apps that don't show up there or something. I don't know. Do I look like I have that money? Settings are pretty alright, it's consolidated in the menu of its own and looks much better and easier to understand, but for some reason, there's silence. Like, come on, nothing in the background? It's 2023 and there's nothing without themes? Be real. Oh, and the startup screen is stupid. It makes it look like the Series X is a cinematic masterpiece or something. You're not fooling me, Microsoft. But we're finally out of the hell of the Xbox realm, and we're still not done. Oh god, I need to talk about Nintendo. Nintendo is strictly a games company, unlike Sony or Microsoft, so that means they have the upper hand advantage in knowing what consumers want, right? Right? Technically, the first OS Nintendo really had was on the 64DD, but there was nothing going on there, so we're just gonna ignore it. The GameCube. Definitely a success story for Nintendo, right? First console to use discs, technically portable, 4-player support right out of the box, oh come on. The GameCube's intro is insanely iconic, even with its embarrassing sales numbers. It literally was a meme for a hot while there. And it had secret alternate sounds if you held some buttons on the controllers, which is a neat touch. Going further into the menu reveals a menu of insane uniqueness, as will be commonplace with Nintendo. You get some nice ambient music in the background, which will also be commonplace. For a while at least. The cube itself is the menu, and each side is a different element. You have your options, which is just audio and screen adjustment settings, your calendar, which is where you set your date and time for the console, your memory card, where you can see and edit the contents of your memory cards, and gameplay, where you can run the game you have in. Also, apparently the music in the background is just a slowed down reverb edit of the Famicom Disk System startup jingle. Now, the GameCube was a console where you just put the game in and it automatically played, similar to the competing consoles at the time, so this menu was probably seldom used. But you know what console didn't autoplay games? Great segue. Well, it was a little-known console called the Wii. It was alright, I guess. The first thing the Wii greeted you with was this, a health and safety warning message. Although it really isn't, it just tells you to read the manual section about health and safety. Because that makes sense. And it isn't just once either, it pops up every time. I guess Nintendo didn't want everyone suing them over their broken TVs after the Wiimote goes flying. Then we get to the main screen, a grid of channels with the iconic background music. What more can I say? This is the life. If I could live here, I would. It's so intuitive and easy to use. With the Wiimote, it just makes sense. You know what doesn't make sense though? The settings menu. I made fun of the PS3 settings menu for being too complicated. But what the fuck is this, Nintendo? Not even a joke, I didn't know how to set up the internet with my Wii for the longest time. It was that confusing. Everything here looks so foreign. Like, why was this the final design? There's also the Wii message board, a place to send and receive mail via your Wii friends. Did anyone really use this for anything other than looking at your playtime and making stupid memos? But otherwise, this is a pretty good menu. Iconic in every sense of the word. But we know the drill. How did Nintendo fuck it up? The Wii U, a console that, to be honest, deserves a better rap. But enough about the console, more about the menu. The Wii U greets you with two things on the gamepad and on the TV. Starting on the TV, you get Wada Wada Plaza, a plaza with random Miis from around the world posting to the Miiverse about games you've played. It's very cute, and I enjoyed it. Until Nintendo killed off Miiverse. On the gamepad, however, you got the actual menu, with a grid of applications for you to select from. Pretty simple, and I was actually able to connect my console to the internet immediately. Props to you, Nintendo, you figured out basic GUI usability. The bottom row was a bunch of Nintendo-specific stuff, like Miiverse, the eShop, the internet browser, etc. Nice that it was separated. Oh, and you could switch the menu in Wada Wada Plaza if you wanted to, which was a nice touch. And if you want a complaint, why the f do I need to use the gamepad to change system settings? That is not a necessity. I have a broken gamepad, what do you want me to do? But the music. Oh, the music. Nintendo weren't fucking around when they made the music for the Wii U. I could fall asleep to the main menu music, but they went through the effort to make music for all the different applications. And they all sound so great. But apparently, Nintendo used up all their music points with the Wii U and didn't have any left for the Switch. The Switch's menu is quite boring, which is weird to say considering it's a Nintendo console. They're meant to be unique. It's a Nintendo thing. Why is it this bland? I get it's because the console is meant to be both a handheld and a home console, but this is so bland. Anywho, it's simple. There are games, Nintendo stuff, and account stuff, and each section has its own little sound to go along with it. That's cute. But yeah, there's not a lot to say because there's not a lot to work with. It's a good menu, just uninteresting. Oh my god, I forgot to talk about the Dreamcast! No joke, I forgot the Dreamcast existed, so this is a last-minute addition. That really does represent the console, doesn't it? The Dreamcast was Sega's last hurrah as a console manufacturer, and it came with a startup screen and menu. An orange ball bouncing to make the letters of Dreamcast appear, followed by it forming the Dreamcast logo at the top. Although if you're in Europe, everything's blue because the German company Tivoli has a similar logo. Now onto the menu. It's very simplistic, and I like it. Sure, the 3D animations of the icons are a little weird, but it gives it a little bit of unique flavor. There are 4 options: play, file, music, and settings. Play just plays whatever disc you have in. File allows you to look at and edit the content of your memory cards, or the VMUs as they're called. Music allowed you to play audio CDs, and settings was your settings. It allowed you to change the language, audio settings, the date and time, and whether or not you want to have the games auto start when turning on the console. Again, it's a very simple menu, and I like it for that. It definitely takes design elements from the PS1, which is fair because it was the only console with a menu before it. But I think out of all the console menus, this one is my favorite. Also, there's a weird special menu if you have a save file from Puyo Puyo Fever. For some reason. But that should be it. Oh, god damn it. Okay, I'll make this short. Unlike the clock and calendar, though I never really understood why I used 24-hour time, PictoChat was nice, but why do I have to restart the console to do anything? Hey, we get the privilege of having multiple games and apps now, so that's cool. The photo you've taken being at the top is weird, but the rainbow pen in PictoChat is very cool, and Flipnote Studio, my beloved. I like the little animations of the apps at the top, that's kinda cute. The whole menu is very Wii U-esque, and it was the same era after all. I like the inclusion of themes, but gift demos are kinda weird. This is just a dumbed down PS3 menu. Pretty much the same likes and dislikes from there. The apps look like pills. Having to open a game 2 times is weird, but it has a bunch of music that plays in various places like the Wii U, which is very cool, and I like it. And that's all of them. So, have console menus gotten better over time? Well, yeah, in a way. The consoles became more powerful and capable, and the menus had to support that. But they're all usable, even if some of them are a bit annoying to work with. And appearance isn't everything. The Switch's is as basic as ever, yet it still works. But what is everything is usability. Which begs the question, what the fuck is this, Nintendo?